More, let's bring in NewsNation senior national security analyst, retired Air Force Lieutenant General Richard Newton. Good morning to you, General. Okay, I want to get in as many points as possible, so let's play a little lightning round at first. President Biden calling this a difficult decision to send these cluster bombs. Did he make the right call? Yes or no?
It is a good decision, and yes, he did, because it's right now there's a stalemate on the battlefield, and in order to dislodge a very deeply entrenched Russian forces along that border, especially in the eastern part of Ukraine, I think this is a very good move, and it comes at a time when Ukraine is short on artillery rounds in the first place. And so I think this is a very good move on our part.
Over the weekend, the president saying that Ukraine isn't ready to join NATO until the war is over. Is he right? Yes or no?
I believe he's right. This is probably the last thing he wants on an agenda where we're into day 500 of this war. And so he has to keep NATO unified. He's in a very tough meeting coming up this week with NATO leaders and so forth. But I don't think it's the right time right now to consider even put on the table of having Ukraine join NATO.
Okay, so let's talk about those member countries, 120 of them, more than 2/3 of NATO members, banning these kinds of weapons. British Prime Minister Rishi Sunak and Spain's defense minister, they tried to dissuade the president from sending these bombs. Why are people calling them a deal maker, ensuring Ukraine's victory, at least maybe assuming that or presuming that? Couldn't this be a deal breaker with a lot of our allies?
Well, you're referring to the cluster bomb convention that was signed back in 2010. 120 nations actually supported signing that. The signatories do include a number of NATO members, as you alluded to, Adrienne, but it does not include the United States, doesn't include Russia, and actually doesn't include Ukraine at all. So again, I think what we need to focus on, though, is really what is going to be most effective in providing Ukraine the opportunity to really now kick off this counteroffensive. We're discovering, again, as I mentioned, after 500 days, the most difficult thing is trying to dislodge an enemy with 15 miles of entrenched positions, as the Russians are in the Donbass region. And it's very difficult. And so the defensive is much more difficult than the offensive in this case to try to overcome.
In terms of the broader picture, Russia, of course, sought revenge initially with this war, with Ukraine's presumed dealings with the West. But is there the possibility that President Zelensky risks looking like he is putting the lives of his people on the line in a power grab to join NATO as more of a priority than ending this war?
I don't think so. Everything I've heard and read, and certainly most recently, what President Zelensky is really trying to create conditions for a negotiated settlement. The conditions being to dislodge the Russian forces, not necessarily where they invaded in 2024 or 2022, but all the way back into 2014. He's just trying to get Russia off his soil, and so he is calling out, trying to compel NATO partners and the European surrounding countries to support him in this effort. But it's a very thin line, as you allude to in your question, Adrienne, that he's got to make sure he focuses not only on taking care of his people while they're under siege of warfare, but also look to the future over the next 6, 10, 12 months, maybe 2 years or so, in terms of what Ukraine's going to look like once it comes out of this war.
But if he were to join NATO, this is much bigger than the war with Russia. This would be something that would presumably change the face of Europe for the rest of the world.
Absolutely. I think the timing for that decision, I think the president has this right. Let's hold off on any discussions on Ukraine joining NATO until after the conflict and after a negotiated settlement. Right now, let's focus on getting Russia out of Ukraine. It's very difficult. As I mentioned, they're within 15 miles of deep entrenched lines and so forth, and giving them all the capabilities that they need to be able to do that, I think, is first and foremost the top priority.
Thank you for watching. Go to newsnationnow.com to find NewsNation on your television provider. And don't forget to click the red subscribe button below to get more of NewsNation's fact-driven, unbiased coverage.